I'm back.
Fresh start.
All
Fresh
right.
start.
John, you're muted.
You're muted, John.
He kind of looks like the Max Headroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's muted.
Away.
He's just like.
He may have said he's just going to leave the show to us.
Okay, that's fine. So is this? We're on, regardless of how long we've been on. So hello, ladies. One week left. Hello.
Hello.
1 week left of summer. Less than a week.
Yes, we're actually going to try to enjoy it this last weekend, soak up as much sun as possible, and get ready for harvest season. And here in Georgia, we're able to actually start a whole new garden. We can start most of our greens, broccolis, cauliflowers. We can get away with some frost-proof tomatoes. So it's kind of a little easier to grow in fall here than in summer. Because in summer, the plants get hit so hard midday that they're hungry and thirsty. So you feel like you can't feed them enough and you can't water them enough. And then anything you do that's wrong, if they sit in water, they get root rot. If they don't get enough, the fruit doesn't taste as good or the vegetable doesn't taste as good. So you can't go out of town. You can't really do anything. Or you've got to get little, bottle things that will drip slowly as you're gone. You have to water really quick before you leave and get back. And first thing you do is run in water. So fall is amazing because everything grows so well. And if it starts to have like crisp nights, we just put these little plastic miniature greenhouses on top of it just to keep the frost from coming. But I mean, we get collard greens, turnip greens, kale, spinach, you name it. And so we can have a huge salad every day in the winter. Or, into fall, beginning of winter.
See, that's so wild. This is what me and Carol were just talking about. We just are like, we don't know why we live in the North sometimes. Like there's so many good things about it, but sometimes you just like knock your head. You're just like, I don't know.
I'll tell you what's good about it. You guys have the best evergreens. You have the best conifers. You actually have a sunset and a treescape that is so gorgeous with redwoods. You name it. I mean, those trees are magnificent there. There's not as much stress unless you're dealing with forest fire because people haven't been keeping up with the underbrush and doing what they're supposed to, what our taxes are supposed to do. But like we struggle here with conifers and evergreens, which is some of my favorite plants beside ferns. And we can only use the ones that have been grafted on the Abies firma rootstock. And so we, can cheat, but it's just not, it doesn't grow as prolific. You really have to baby it. It will tend to get spider mites and things like that because our, bug population thinks, oh, wow, this is amazing. One amazing thing about conifers are it hides the birds from the hawks and the owls in the winter, and that's why we always want to include them in our clients' yards and in their landscapes because, little birds and sweet peas need a little place to hide during the winter. Because you just see bare trees here in Georgia because we don't have those we have magnolia trees, but, they're kind of messy. They're beautiful. But, there's just something about the conifers. So I think the North is amazing in that manner. And fresh, cool air on your lungs, amazing. I mean, it's you cannot get that.
The magnolia is an evergreen?
Yeah. It is. It doesn't lose its leaves, but it's messy in the summer because a lot of the leaves fall. When you mulch them up, it's just, it's a messy tree, but it's beautiful. And the bloom on it smells amazing. But I think there's so many beautiful things about the North. The only thing is the farming, but I'm sure with a glass greenhouse, you can extend your season at least by 4 months.
Well, it kind of depends on the winter. I don't have a glass greenhouse. I have a real small yard, but I have been able to grow kale through the winter. Sometimes it kind of, goes under the snow a little bit, but it comes right back and it looks like a palm tree. So I did plant a bunch of kale just to make that'll come up through. Right now, there's just so much stuff growing. It's so beautiful. It's so exciting. It's just getting tall. There's squashes, there's cucumbers, there's all kinds of greens. It's really wonderful. And tomatoes, everything's just there. So that's been really fun. But when I was planting my kale, I bought all this worm poop at the beginning of the year. Remember I told you about that?
Yes.
And there's so many worms. There's red worms. There's great big worms. Just, digging a little hole and going in there. It was such beautiful soil that has just, manufactured itself over the course of this summer.
And for people who can't afford worm poop, or they don't know where to get it, or they're just like new to it, I'll tell you an amazing tip. After it rains, especially if you have children love doing this. Everyone gets a little bitty cup, you put dirt in it. And after the rain, you walk along sidewalks, go to a park, there are worms everywhere. You give it an hour or two because the birds let them have their pick. But then there's plenty of worms, especially on the street side where the gutter is, like where it can't really get back on to the ground. There's so many. And, we usually play a game where, oh, how many worms did you get? Or we'll go through our driveway and around concrete areas because worms get carried on by the rain. And there they are. And we throw them in the cup and then we put them all together. We put them in our containers. And if we're doing any container gardening, we'll throw those worms in there. And, you don't know what they're doing, but the poop in there is feeding the roots. It's amazing. And you saved a worm. And so my kids really love doing that. We love enjoying saving the worms.
Yeah.
That's
all
so
I did
funny.
was the worm.
I remember digging for worms. That I got to get the kids. That was great.
Well, the other thing that really helped my garden, I think, was as I planted each little plant in the spring, I put just a little teaspoon of pellets of mycelium spores underneath because they only have 48 hours and then to contact the rootlets. And once they can contact the ends of the rootlets, they start to grow with the roots and they just make their web of communication and just-in-time delivery of all the nutrients to the roots, which grow the plants. So it's pretty much that was it. It just add water, and you got.
So where do you buy those or harvest them?
Well, I did buy. I mean, I once they grow, then they're there. But I did buy some things called BE1 beneficial enzyme pellets, and they're in there. So I just put a little teaspoon or tablespoon in each little hole as I plant it, and then they expand. And they help make the soil all fluffy and the worms are happy and they take the dead bodies of bugs or whatever and turn it into what the plants need. So
doesn't diatomaceous earth do the same thing?
No, diatomaceous earth is calcium. It's the dead bodies of diatoms, which are, teeny little, they look sort of like sea urchins, but miniature. You look at them in the microscope. So it's, it's a real important nutrient for plants, but it isn't alive. It's dead. The diatomaceous earth isn't a living thing that regrows. Most of them came from the sea. I think the diatoms are from the water. They grow in the water.
When the fleas or the nasty ones eat it, it cuts up their insides, and that's how it takes care of them.
That's true. Yeah, it helps with insects.
Control. Yeah, I've heard to sprinkle it on top of the soil, especially if your watermelon or your cucumber leaves or whatever are getting eaten. Put it on that, and it keeps it's a good way not to have to put pesticides on your plants, and it does its job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's this fig that last year it was little and it came inside, but this year it's bigger. And so I'm hearing, I haven't looked it up yet, that you're supposed to tuck it and bury it in a mound. Do you guys know anything about that?
We had a client, this is what she would do every year with her figs. She would wait till the figs came to be and she would pluck them. Then she would prune it. She would have us, after she showed us, and she was very particular, we weren't allowed to touch her fig until the third year we worked for her. Then she said, okay, I think you've seen what I've done. So what she would do is she would prune off a good 12 inches of the new growth. And each year it would get a little bigger, but she would keep it framed. And then she would have us get one of those big, huge trash cans of mulch. And it would be the teeny tiny miniature mulch, and then pour it on top of the soil to mound it. And there would be about this much of the fig kind of sticking up. And then when spring came, when she would see the little nodules start to pop out, we'd push back all of the wood chips and make a berm around it so that when it rained, it would hold the water in the first beginnings, and then we would smooth it all the way out for summer. That way, because the fig liked for water to hit it, but not sit in there. But in the spring, it liked to get that extra water to build up, the roots and make it stronger. So each year it would produce more fruit. So that's how she did it. She's very particular, Miss Kretschmann, and she grew up in Germany where they had to grow everything. So it was like this farm side land, and they didn't really shop as much as it might be for cheese, a special cheese that they wanted, or like a bottle of wine, or, something from the butcher, but it was never, just your basic fruits and veggies. They grew all of those. It was odd to go somewhere and come home buying someone else's vegetables or fruits. Like they'd have their little basket. They'd go outside each day. And, I think she had talked about one thing they didn't really do a lot of was potatoes. But they did, carrot, you name it, and potatoes are my favorite. So we're trying to master potatoes this year.
Yeah.
But I hope that answers the fig. I don't know, because she's in Georgia and that's what she did here. It may be different where you are.
So
I have some
but I just wonder if you stick the top out or maybe bury it all. I guess that gives me a lot of information, I think.
I lived in Greece for a couple of years, and we used to get a lot of figs there. And we had some friends that, they were from the island, and so they used all the traditional methods. They didn't have to worry about the cold, but preserving the figs was really wonderful. You just sort of put them on the flat roofs in the sun and get them to the right consistency, and then press them into form to hold them dry, so they didn't get too much air into them to preserve them. So it was fun to learn about those kinds of things, because we do have figs here, but it's not quite the same.
Let me tell you, one of my favorite snacks. It's so good. So you take, a really good cracker. I like cranberry rain crisps. So it's like a cracker, but it's kind of bendable but crunchy, and it's got little chunks of cranberry in it. And then we get the fig jam, the fig preserves, and then we get like a cheese, like a type of a brie, or like a fancy kind of goat cheese. I also like mimolette cheese. It's got a lot of cheese mites in it, which are actually good for your digestion, but the FDA says it's not. But we like mimolette, and it's a hard and salty cheese, and you put it with the fig jam and the cracker. It's one of the best dinners with a side salad. It's one of my favorites. It's like, there's nothing like at the end of summer, beginning of fall, having the last of that, summer fruity, nice little spread that everyone just gets little finger foods and sits around and eats them, maybe with some fresh apple cider. Because we just went and picked apples. We went to an apple farm and we picked up a huge thing of apple cider, and the kids love it. Sometimes at night when it gets cool, we'll heat it up and add a little cinnamon to it and a little honey. And they are just like, they think, whoa, this is amazing.
Wow, you could really do a restaurant, Amber. You have so many good ideas and like little recipes and full meals and great stuff.
We surprisingly have a lot of people in Georgia that are starting to go organic and even starting to get snotty about it. And I'm okay with that, because I'm so tired of, the GMO people getting on to me when I wear my hat that says "Make America GMO free again." And they're like, well, that's how we feed poor nations. And I'm like, so if that's the case, why are we having it in our farms? Like, that's not a good excuse. And why are we feeding toxic things to poor nations? Aren't we supposed to be enhancing their, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
And then I always ask, does someone in your family work for Monsanto or something? Is this why you're upset? And then of course nobody wants to talk about it any further. But I'm like, no, don't come at me about GMOs and try to explain to me how it's good for me. Please get off my back.
Well, there's so much common ground here, and it's like people there's tricks across the board. And as people realize it, that's part of our dialogue and part of our like sorting it out, because it's like a lot of these chemical companies have come around to different farms and stuff and convinced them that it would be cheaper, better, more effective. It's just not. It's not. And they just want to get rid of their chemicals or whatever they're doing. And it's not it's not better. So people that are like, and then there's the financial argument where you have to say, okay, anybody that cares about an environmental issue, do you really think throwing money at some politician or whoever is going to do anything about it? It's like you need hands-on action and actual, like, cause and effect and figuring it out. The whole thing of like, we gave money to this one, so therefore, you know what I
What's
mean?
stressful for the farmers is the seeds don't last to the next year. So even if you were to save your vegetable, like the farmers take all their food in, they sell what they're going to sell and they keep the other, they can't even keep their seeds to put in the ground for next year. They have to buy a whole new lot. There is no seed saving. And if you've ever been on farms, we trained at a plant nursery at one point, and they save everything. So when they grow herbs, at the end of the season, they trim them all. They cover the pot, hoping next year it'll come back. Then they go, you tie it with tweed, you go and hang it in your dry shed. And now you've got dried herbs in like not even 3 weeks. And people will use those because you don't need much, and you put them in your little containers, but you go in and you have, herbs hanging everywhere. You have an area where they actually take the plant and they knock it on this little grid. It gets all the seeds out. They can't even do that anymore because the seeds are worthless. They don't last more than one season.
Well, there's a lot of countries that are way ahead of us, GMO free, including a lot of ones in Europe, Russia. India has done a really amazing job of moving what was a huge movement to GMO, which was causing the small farmers to suicide themselves, to making a shift to really using those ancient practices of being organic. And they're finding it's higher production. They're getting more out of the land and, supporting more people to do it. There's just so many advantages that if you can learn about what really helps and how to really make live soil that works.
What I noticed, like, I know there's some things I have against Disney because they shouldn't be in the political realm, nor should they be, talking at kids the way they do or trying to make them older than they are. But one thing that I really enjoyed, and it's at Epcot, is you ride this ride on like a water thing, and it shows agriculture and what they're doing. They're showing hydroponics. They're showing how you can grow enough for your whole family on this one tier shelf that has like multiple shelves with little holes and pockets in it where you can grow, 20 spinach, 15, broccoli, whatever you need. And as soon as you harvest it, you pop it back in. And because you're not having the environmental issue and it comes with the light, you can bring your garden in the winter in areas that you can't really grow. And then in areas you can grow, they have the things that sit outside, but that is an irrigation drip. So you're using a 16th of the water, and there's not the bugs that the bugs that really zap your garden because they don't have the soil to live in. And so, and they drown a lot of times. So it's very difficult for them to take advantage of that. And they just have so many things they're working on that it seems like the consumers aren't really getting the word of, what we can do personally to make sure that we always have enough for, it's one thing to buy beans and rice and things like that, because, that fills you up. But being able to grow some squash and zucchini and, really amp up your plate, then that makes that rice and beans go a lot further, just because you're in your garden and you're getting your chlorophyll and your micronutrients. It's so important. It's a lost art. And we got to figure out a way to bring it back and make it cool again.
There's ways to do hydroponic using chemicals, and there's ways to do hydroponic using fish. Fish in the water that poop in the water. And so
that's what they use at Disney. They use the fish.
So there's different ways to do it. You need to pay attention.
Yeah. They were trying to get out of the farming of the fish that was bad for the fish. So they started to do it where they were like tilapia and things like that. But it's the plants feed the fish feed the plants. And then they use the insects to feed the fish. And so it's a good life cycle they've got going on without the pollutants, without the major farming where they just throw in a bunch of chemicals and stuff. And then we get a salmon that's colored a weird color that's not really
Or fake color.
edible. Yeah. And
Well,
so they're steering away from that.
The fish eating the insects makes sense, but people eating insects, maybe not so
That's
much. I think
no.
it's not
There's
digestible.
parasites in them.
Parasites, there's a lot of problems. Plus they taste really awful. But they can probably fix that, but the other things are still part of what insects are.
I think if there, I'd rather have insects than vegetables, but not necessarily like we're talking about ground up insects for protein or something, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's what I was talking about. Replacement.
And don't forget, we know that organic vegetables actually make you fuller quicker.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
They do. And you're not addicted to them in some weird, that they have addictive qualities. And if you're eating a subpar fruit or vegetable that's really not giving you the nutrients you need, and then you're craving more of that type of it, that's not good. I don't know how we lost our connection with the earth and how magical it is that women give birth and how amazing it is that something you eat grows from the ground. How you can look at dandelions and not understand, tortoises love the dandelion weeds, but did you know that we could eat a dandelion in salad and we can, clean off the leaves and add those to our salad? That pine needles, when you're not feeling well, you can boil those, and the vitamin C is so high and concentrated that, you don't have to chew 40 vitamin C orange tart flavored tablets to get, just that little bit of vitamin C, and your body actually takes it in,
you don't even have to boil
so much more.
Boil it. You can just put the pine bough or the fir bough or the cedar bough in the water. That's what the Native Americans around here did. They used it just to purify their water, and makes it taste really good too. It's just a real slight flavor of what you would be breathing in the forest.
It's really good to add cucumber and rosemary and mint. So if you add rosemary, mint, cucumber, and pine needle, it gives it a really nice taste. It's like you're at a frou-frou spa and you go and you get their nice water that they flavored with stuff.
Can it be like any pine, or what kind of pine?
Yeah, just
loblolly. That's what I know people use.
A lot of pines, Douglas fir. I think there are some that you wouldn't want to use, but most of them are fine. I think what we're talking about here is how to take responsibility in a way that makes us feel like we're doing something and we're effective human beings. So you're not as susceptible to the fear. We have this message that Tara and I were talking about before you got here, Amber, but this message of starvation is coming, and this is a time of scarcity, this dark winter, and all these messages are coming through. But there's everybody can take these steps, and the more responsibility we can take on, the less dependent we are on this new global enterprise and the WEFers, World Economic Forum, make all the decisions for us that, like we're seeing in the Ukraine, that all the beautiful farmland that was being sold off to Monsanto and giant corporations is probably not a good use of that land for Europe and Russia, who don't eat that food.
I think that's where my issue lies and where I really am struggling. So I appreciate business, and I appreciate when people are able to build a business and hire people to work that otherwise can't have their own business. But I don't appreciate when they try to monopolize, buy out a market, then try to do it in some way that exploits people and then looks for ways to shortcut in order to make money. And, they don't tend to listen to the wise people who've been farming forever. They tend to get some young dude that's coming in really cocky to say, this is what we're going to do. And I talked to this guy who lobbied me and they're going to give us this much money. And then all of a sudden, something that was given as a beautiful gift on this earth that could make the most amazing food and that was known as a breadbasket becomes something that Monsanto adds to their belt loop. And it's so gross. It's if I were someone who was a capitalist and a big old capitalist, I would be worried about the taste that I was leaving in people's mouth. Like the way that I'm just running around acting like I know everything, but my items I do in mass quantity, the cheapest way that I can, but it doesn't mean it's the healthiest. It doesn't mean it's the best for the earth. I would be embarrassed and I'd be looking for ways where I could turn that around. And yet then there's people that just don't want there to be a money system or businesses at all and let the government run it all. Both ways are really gross right now. And they're fighting for all of us to get subpar materials and struggle. So neither side in their tug of war game is doing anything for anyone. And it's a problem. I mean, this is not okay. And, I'm not someone who throws the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not like, everything the federal government does is bad and everything that a corporation does is bad. But they've got a lot of work and they're screwing up everything and they need to clean their own house because they're concentrating on the other house way too much. And, we're left out in the cold. We're the ones who are screwed over. We're the ones who have to pick up the pieces in our house and in our neighborhood while they're going to the bank and enjoying themselves. The government wastes so much money. It's disgusting. We don't even know where half of it's going. Just like corporations sit there and lobby our government and then supports them and their power as long as they get, to freely do what they want. And it's a disgusting, pairing up and then they fight at the same time. So we're just in this struggle and I'm tired of being in struggle. I'm tired of being underneath both of their thumbs. It's not benefiting anybody except for a few people. And everyone is prostituting themselves for either being a corporatist or being someone who wants the federal government to do everything. And they're both lackluster. They both have a lot of issues. And we should be demanding that they clean up their own house before they try to mess with our house. Like, get out of my house until you can fix yours.
Yeah. And I think that that's where we have to realize that, like, okay, we're living in this like identity ridden world of like labels and stuff, right? But if people really want to get down to the brass taxes, it's like that's the difference between capitalism and actual fascism. Okay, the fascism is the government, the power structure, whatever it may be, working through the corporations to dominate, monopolize, and crush any small business, whether it be first generation or whatever generation it may be. And so the idea that, it's like to talk about throwing the baby out the bathwater, that's the way to get like, oh, these people shove it all under this banner of capitalism and talk about how much it's destroying us, when really those two things are opposing each other. The free capitalism of people to run businesses and make their own deals and grow their own stuff, compared to this corporate parasitic entity that is trying to be the world's infiltration.
Yeah, I think we have been eliminated from the conversation and the planning for sure, and that the stakeholders are everybody except individuals. They don't count anymore. Their opinions.
Sometimes I think, well, they don't know how to approach us, or they don't know how to get everyone on the same page, or they don't know how to communicate.
They don't want to try.
Exactly.
They don't know how to be human. They do not know how to be human. The human spirit, for whatever reason, is not within their like realm of activity. It's just not.
And I think I've seen it play out in local communities. So there'll be an uprising. People are like, hey, we're tired of this and this. And then all of a sudden they'll send people to give money to a community or this community, or they'll go to each state and they'll say, you know what, we're going to send our people in and we're going to show up at community meetings, at NPUs, at gatherings. And we're going to say, we're going to do this community garden and we're going to do this health mart and we're going to do this. And then, okay, we talked to you guys. We heard you. It was a handful of people in a neighborhood and then it fixed a problem where only maybe a 15 to 20 block radius would be affected, but still there's other things around them that are keeping them from being at the, the organic food market every Saturday morning. So then it doesn't do amazingly well, like what they're used to seeing corporate profits, or like the way the governments used to be run. So they look at it as like a net loss. And well, I thought these people wanted this. I thought this is what they wanted. So then it becomes everyone's fault because they decided to put it at an old train station in the parking lot every other Saturday. And somehow the 15 block radius that it represented, they didn't get a lot of buyers. So therefore people were just, complaining to complain. And then they have a negative outlook on the people who uprise and say that there's something going on. It's because they don't know how to manage people in a way where it gives people a voice, and it gives them their own autonomy, and it gives them the strength to be able to create what it is that they feel is missing. They don't know how to give those incentives to people individually to take it on their own to do so. They just know how to go in, still run it, still be the overseer of it, and then allow a few people to partake in it. And then those people are supposed to be smart enough to gather that 15 to 20 block radius and have everyone in that radius go to them as the neighborhood, important person. And that's not a good layout. That's not what's best for all of us, and I know it's a struggle, but maybe the problem is they're trying to manage everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they should allow those who know how to manage themselves to be able to manage. And then the ones who need help, then, they can address that. But the ones that they're in their way, like there's too many HOAs where you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this and you can't do that. I can understand some of it, but they've literally made it concrete jungles. And then they want us to somehow, wait for them to give us bread in line if we need help. It's sad.
Everything that's the model. Everything has to come down to the numbers, okay? And that's to the non-representation of the quality. And so quality is out the door because the numbers are the only thing that matter. And if we continue on this model, it is so unsustainable, because what are numbers besides something that you're counting right there? You can see they're symbols. They symbolize something. They represent something. They are not the thing that they represent. They're not the thing itself. So if we keep on acting like any business structure is only doing well if the numbers turn into dollars or whatever, that is unsustainable. It doesn't work. It's not, and it even goes with this thing that I wrote down. Because we have things that we're going to be talking about when it comes to different words and stuff. We have current, or what's current, what's up, what's happening, it's happening, it's current, it's a flow, it's the currency, not the stagnancy, the currency. So it's a movement. Yeah. Okay. And as long as there's a movement, the movement is in water, the movement is in seeds, the movement is in trade, the movement is in just what? You know what I mean? So that is what we're really dealing with here. So the trick that, like, my piece of paper that wrote down the thing that symbolizes the thing is the main goal. It's like you can wipe your butt with it. Like, that's about it.
Well, I think that's exactly what life is. Life is different than it's animated, and life stuff that is not animated is like ideas and structure that doesn't move, just things that are solid. But as the processes start to happen, that's what life is, and life sustains life itself. And so when you take something that's rigid or something that doesn't move in its own self, and apply it to life, it just kills it.
What I'm finding where people seem to be the most frustrated is there's more of a hindrance when they are wanting to be creative, or when they're wanting to start a business, or when they're wanting to, sustain themselves and their families. There's licensing and insurance. And okay, I get it. They have to put a tag on a dryer that says hair dryer that says do not use by water. Okay, we have some dull light bulbs in the human race. I get it. But
they don't read the label.
They don't read the labels, right? And so I think the bigger issue is they spend so much time on trying to divide people politically. And, NPR, PBS, or the nightly news, instead of them actually enhancing human life and actually talking about those things that are beneficial, like tips about gardening, really great healthy recipes, tips about trails to walk on with your children, amazing finds about some new animals found on the Galapagos Islands, like really things that bring us back with our feet on the ground, where we're really enjoying the life that we're given, even though it's hard and full of tests and full of trials and tribulations. But they are enhancing our learning by showing us there's so much around us that benefit us that we can use to our benefit for sustainability, for survival, and just for creative measures, all on their own. But we spend more time talking about each political party and who it's okay for these to break. Like Martha Stewart can't do insider trading, but everyone in Congress can. And it's okay. And no one, Martha Stewart gets to, sent to jail, and then later, meets Snoop Dogg, and then they go and do roasts together on Comedy Central. And it's okay because she paid her dues for insider trading. But everyone in Congress comes out 50 times more wealthy than they were before they entered, because lobbyists are all over the place and they're dealing in insider trading, which is why so many of them got rid of stocks before the pandemic and invested in Zoom and Skype and things like that. And did they get in trouble? No. Is there going to be anything that comes from it? No. To how many of them invested in this medical tyranny that we're dealing with? How many of them invested in gene therapy and made a buku of money? So it's beneficial to them to force a mandate. They should be sued, because if you're forcing something through legislation that you're going to benefit from monetarily, you're evil. That's wrong. That's like, the same people who said nobody should invest in the dinar because that's evil because people in Iraq were hurt. Well, actually, people in Iraq wanted the dinar. So investing in it was actually good for the people that we just destroyed, actually. But those same people went and invested in gene therapy that they're forcing down everybody's throat. So I find that to be utterly disgusting.
Well, we can't criticize corruption, so we can't see it. It's like disallowed to talk about it or to point any fingers or to reveal things. And I think George has said democracy dies in darkness. And so shining the light is really important, because we can't really have a society based on living principles if there is this downward pyramid darkness that is controlling the message. It's the message that that humans seem to have lost control of, except on individual levels.
Well, it looks like to me we've gone back to monarchical thinking.
Yeah,
I've never seen so much hoopla, and I want the Queen to rest in peace, and I'm not someone who speaks bad of the dead. I think you don't do that. They're not there to, to speak up for themselves. I don't talk bad of the dead, but I'm just saying this fascination with other countries, and yet the negativity from people in our own country that aren't doing their due diligence to make our country better. They're not even being patriotic. They're just saying, this country is pure evil or everything bad about it. But other countries who have done far worse for far longer, they're giving all their attention to. And I find that very tacky. And it's happening on both sides of the aisle. And, you should love where you are, and you should make it the best place there is to be. You should say, I love my country. I love my land. I love the people on this land, and we're going to do better. Not we're going to throw this out because we admire this group over here who's just as bad and has just as many problems.
Well, I think we can still admire the earth and we are part of our country and our locality and all of that, but we also live on one earth altogether. So both of those things we have to balance. And I think it's gotten way out of balance all of
It
a
is.
sudden.
It's absolutely out of balance.
Years.
I mean, if I hear one more person say, well, it's just so much more dignified and sophisticated in Great Britain. And I'm like, hello, don't you understand that's why they allowed degradation to happen, where we all look like improper, slutty, unwashed creatures that complain about everything and throw our trash down after a concert, and everybody else is drinking tea with their pinky up or listening to sophisticated music or soft jazz, sipping wine and eating cheese in France or Italy. Like, yeah, that would be amazing. But who's buying the records? Who's pushing this stuff? Like, come on now. We used to have beautiful jazz and blues, and we have so many singers out there that make amazing lyrics. But who's not allowing those songs to go out? And who's making us all look like trash? You should want to clean up that so we can have a sophisticated culture. But our culture's been sabotaged. And I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of people talking down our country. We need work. We need to work on it. We're in a bad place. But I sure as heck am not wishing we were someone else. And yes, I think it's beautiful that each country has their sovereignty and their culture. And I think each culture of peoples is amazing. I think every color of woman is gorgeous. And I think every different shape of the eye and the mouth and the nose is amazing. But I don't want to be anybody else. And nor should anybody else want to be anybody else. You were born where you are, and make it the best that you can. And I'm just so tired of everybody wanting the grass to be greener while they're killing their grass. Like, you got to nurture your grass. Look outside your house. Like, make it beautiful. Help your neighbor. And we're missing so many of these points and glomming onto a 10-day TV sprint of someone who passed away. I hope she rests in peace. Just as so many people have died during the pandemic. Just as so many people that are dying right now of suicide. Just how so many kids are on the verge of calling it their last day.
Well, I couldn't help.
We should be thinking of all of that.
The backdrop behind Charles in his first speech, King Charles, was the exact same color as Biden's speech right before the Queen died. That was that deep blood red. They had the exact same color background. So there is this,
So are they Republicans? Since they're wearing red? I'm just joking. I'm just trying to, push back at that because
this is the red and black.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm just, I that was tacky of me. But I'm just, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated at, the dictatorial, tyrannical behavior. And then all in the same breath say, trust me, I've got your best interest at heart. I'm sorry, I already read that book. I don't want to read that book again. I don't want to go there.
Well, on your diversity issue, Amber, I think one of the things I learned in my anatomy training to become a yoga teacher was the diversity of anatomy every single person has. And that was just based on skeletal structure, muscular structure, where your organs are, what size they are, different shapes of hearts, that it's not a curve that's the bell curve. It's a flat curve. Diversity is embedded in our human being, and it's something that's not, when you have a one size fits all for everything, medical solution and food solution, you have to go with the lowest common denominator that's going to kill a bunch of people. There's something so corrupt about that kind of thinking, and I think we need to start calling it corrupt, and the words that really define what it is.
You know how we've talked about linguistics in the past and why people choose certain things and motives and attention pullers and name swapping. Well, I've been going through my ancestry, and yeah, it's interesting. There's German, there's English, there's Irish, there's Scottish, there's French, there's Ukrainian, there's all these different, there's Native American back in my family heritage. But I find it super interesting of my family in America. Their journey, they didn't come here in castles, where they lived previous. They didn't do without. There was a lot of fanciness. They came here. You were lucky to keep your teacup that you had that was passed down, and you had to live in a log cabin. You had to start as a pioneer. I find that amazing. we have Native Americans that married some of my Irish ancestors and some of my German ancestors. And, you know, they mix with the Choctaw, with the Chickasaw. And it's amazing what they learned from each other with cultivating and farming. We had a lot of farmers in our family. And I think that's beautiful. I'm not sitting here craving, oh, back in the day, in the royal day in my family. Well, my family came here for a reason, right? And I don't want to go back to that beforehand where apparently it was so great that people left it. I'm sorry. And then lots of people died. Lots of people died in the Revolutionary War. I had family members that fought against each other during the Civil War. There was a lot of people in my family that have died. And, you know, I just feel like we have this amazing gift, and we're the only country that has every peoples from every part of the earth living in one country.
I mean, we're American.
Yeah, we
we're
should
all American.
actually be happy about that and feel like it's beautiful.
We are.
Mm-hmm. We should be proud of that. It's beautiful. And no other country should be mocking us. In fact, they should wish the best for their peoples who came here. And they should, and they should really, you know, if it's an experiment, they should pray that the experiment works. And that people from all over the world could actually live together, have their own religion, have their own identity, and not push their thoughts and ideas on somebody else. And, you know, have people gravitate to where they would naturally gravitate, not be forced, manipulated, or tricked or lied to in order to get whatever experiment, you know, conclusion that a handful of people want. Yeah, I don't like to be at the mercy of a few people. And I think that we can make our country beautiful again.
Hear, hear. I want to interject a movie, because when you were talking about grass is always greener and all this stuff, I was actually named after Gone with the Wind, after the land. And I actually, that was a 1937 movie. My friend, I was already a parent when my friend sat me down one night and was like, you're going to watch this movie. And of course, it's very emotional, but and they got the Civil War, and from the perspective of the South, and the whole, you know, a nice story, you'd say, you know, even though they do show the war. But the point being, when you reminded me the grass is always greener, is, you know, that's really the story of Scarlett O'Hara, is that she could have everything in the world. She had the best romance, the best, you know, the best of everything. And like the one person, her friend's husband, she couldn't have. So her whole life was miserable. And it's just that reminder of, like, you know, look around, take a deep breath, just enjoy the plants and animals and people and air around you. And, you know, even if you're not in the best spot, go find a little niche spot. I bet you can. Even those plazas that popped up, you know, with Targets and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you can go behind one of those and probably find a trail to hike on. You know what I mean? There's niche little forests and things everywhere. And you can be happy, you know, even inside if you want. But the point being is that to like always be like, oh, it's not good enough. Oh, it's not good enough. It's not, we're not this, we're not that. It's like, that's kind of messing with the fact that the journey is supposed to be so amazing, whether it's the best time, you know, a sad time, a challenge, whatever it is. You know, these are the days of our lives. This is where we were put here in the here and now for certain reasons. And I think we can all feel that. And we're trying to, you know, follow our instincts here, I guess.
Well, I think it's beautiful. And I think I would never want to live in a world where cultures didn't have their customary way of getting married, their customary way of having their child come to adulthood, their customary way of sitting down for their special moment in eating the food that they find sacred and that goes back in their ancestry. I don't want everyone to be cloaked under a new identity and a mono government. I don't want Babylon. You know, if it was impressive and it was so great, it would have lasted till this day. It didn't. Because when you take away people's identity, they've lost who they are. And you don't have a world anymore. You have a couple of people playing God, and it's so sad. There's nothing more beautiful than watching traditional dance that comes from a country. And that's why everyone needs to see the movie Baraka, Baraka. It shows every people of the world, all of their cultural, ways of living, even tribesmen. I understand when there's a culture that is brutal or horrible to their own people. That makes sense to step in. There's people suffering and dying. But you don't step in because you don't like the way they dance around a fire. I mean, maybe they don't like the way that you say you worship something and then you break every commandment there is. Like you can't even run around your fire correctly. And then you're judging someone else's doing a rain dance, and yet you're claiming to love God, but you don't follow the commandments. You need to clean up your house. And that's what we've got. We've got a bunch of people living degeneratively, claiming that they've got the idea that everyone should live under a certain idealism that they don't follow themselves. And we're going down a really ugly path. I want to see the diversity, and I don't want people to be forced into a box. And because that's what makes human beings beautiful. We're all different, and we should be.
I just wanted to throw in there real quick. This is not a happy subject, and so we're not going to like tease it out in the negative, but this is kind of the situation with the native schools and the way that, what they really were and what they were really doing. And as we face up to this as a culture, we're not going to do it in the woke way of divide and blame. What we're going to do is we're going to recognize that this is not a color against color, culture against culture. The same evil principalities that we're fighting now, whatever form they come in, are the same ones that were setting up these schools, torturing these students, and setting up hell stuff. And it just so happens, yes, whatever to the royalty, but Canada, when their army, they're not giving themselves to the Constitution. They're giving themselves up to the Queen. So like we said, evil can show up in any form, but it's basically the same evil. So when we notice it in some corner of the Republican Party or somewhere else where we didn't expect it, we can't let it sour the whole batch. It has to be recognized in whatever form it shows up in,
Well, I think we need to speak our hearts and listen to the other side too. I think that's one of the things that has been the divisive processes have stopped people. They just put their fingers in their ears, and that doesn't help any conversation at all, or to get to clarity, or to get to the honest truth. And even in science, we're seeing the same thing. They have to have that dialogue to have real science, a dialogue, and try to knock things down. But if you can't look at any opposing ideas ever, then you're never going to get to the truth.
Pseudoscience. They're doing pseudoscience.
Right. Or it's just science propaganda. It's calling something that it isn't.
Yeah, we're in a bad state. And I get very sensitive about is because we're such a diverse nation, and literally we've got new people coming over and moving here, or they went to school here, but their loyalty is from the country they came. And then they start to criticize America in a way that they've benefited from America. So I came here and I came to school and I got all the benefits from it. But my heart is really with this other country. So I'm going to spend a lot of my time criticizing America and democracy or constitutional republic. And I've got this liberal socialist country that I don't live in and that I'm not going back to. And I want to change this country. I'm sorry, I take offense to that. Like if that is such an amazing way to live, why aren't you where it is already established? I always have that bigger issue. I would never move to another country and not acclimate. But can you imagine? I moved to China and I'm like, no, we should be able to do this. Well, maybe, but then go back where you were able to do it. I cannot grasp that
I spoke to a lot of immigrants going through these last few years, cab drivers, people on January 6th, that had accents. I would talk to them. And I think that a lot of them left to come here because their country was under attack, and they were losing their ability to speak, and everyone was being put in jail. And so the same, and then when they're here, they're seeing all of a sudden the exact same forces are now here. And
yes, and those are my Cuban friends, and my Latino friends, and my Brazilian friends do that. I'm talking about more of like the Eastern European friends, my Northern European friends, my Chinese friends, my Korean friends. They tend to always have something negative to say about America. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me something amazing about, where you're from. And then they're like, well, it's this and this. And be like, are you allowed to say that there? Well, yes, but it has to go through parliament, or yes, it has to go through this. Okay. So then this country isn't so bad after all.
But
can we fix this country rather than say it's just not good enough?
We're losing that. We're losing that right now.
Yeah, it is.
There's been a big campaign that came out, I think this morning. I just saw it. If you see something, say something. It's the exact same campaign that happened, did everybody tell on each other and point the finger, and anyone with a different point of view is cancel cultured. So,
well, if we go back to theater and we actually look at it like this, if someone is blackmailing people so that they repeat Hitler stuff so that they can have revenge, that's ugly. And if you've been blackmailed or you're being blackmailed right now, just come out and say what you did. The American people are very forgiving, and we'll be more so concentrated on the blackmailer who caused all this chaos to begin with. Even if it's our intelligence services, whoever it is, somebody is blackmailing, or something is blackmailing people to either act like Hitler, or it's just in their heart to be that. Either way, we've got an issue. So for me, it's like, if you're being forced to be this crazy, you just come clean. Say, I did this, this, and this. The American people are very forgiving. And we're going to concentrate on this. So you've been acting this crazy and doing all this crazy stuff because this hidden entity was making you do this, so you were just held captive by your bad behavior. Well, that's bad. Why'd you do that bad thing? I get it. But we're being dragged to the muck and mud because people have dirt on each other. And it's absolutely so gross. And I'm so tired of it.
Sometimes they're drugged. Sometimes they drug them and stuff. And it's not even they're.
It's not even real blackmail. They didn't even know that they were getting captured. And, we're suffering this, and it's not okay. It's not okay. I would forgive. I would be appalled, I'm sure, by half of what's happened. But unless this is just in their heart and this is how they are anyway, and they don't need blackmail, they're just, they like control and they'll do anything to keep power. I can imagine that's happened, so many times in history. Those
are the people that rise
unfathomable.
in their ranks.
Mhm.
Those are the rank risers for the evil one.
Well, I think that the bureaucracies they've all been captured, with this kind of groupthink, or, but not everybody. I mean, we just had someone come in to our journal club earlier this week who is a naval intelligence person whose wife works at the CDC, who's been following George for years, both of them. And, they get it, but they can only do what they can do,
Yes.
In their
That's so many friends I have. They literally, they sign non-disclosure agreements.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing anything bad. And the life that they're living isn't doing I'm studying lettuces to make sure that they're healthy. This is not adding to the crap going on, but they have no power to say something. They could lose their livelihood. They could lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
All because they spoke up. I mean, that's a scary place to be. And this is ultimately why almost 21 years ago, my husband and I decided to have a landscaping company, because our biggest fear was we would be tied down corporately or with an entity that was actually doing stuff that we might morally be against. And then we would be stuck trying to make a moral decision. And we just didn't want to be in that situation. So we were willing to labor in order to have that freedom of voice, where we had our own business and we could say whatever we wanted without a corporate entity telling us no. I mean, the worst that can happen is a board, like a board that I would be a part of, would say, hey, you can't talk about this. Then I would just quit the board. It's not a big deal. If I can't speak, then I'll be a part of another board. Who cares? it's not a paycheck. And that's where it's very hard. And they hit people in their pocketbook to make sure they shut up. And that's really sad that you have your First Amendment right taken away because you work for a corporate entity that's benefiting from whatever's happening. And you as an individual, an American citizen, can't have a say. That's a very sad place to be.
Well, I think we've said before on this show, maybe, or some point together, is talking about, in the 90s anyway, it was like when you went to when you were in middle school, you either went to the regular high school or trade high school, and they'll tell you the people going to trade high school, those are the people that like aren't as smart, they don't get the better grades, blah blah blah. And there's nothing wrong with people that don't go to a trade school, but it's like there's the setup right there. Is like, oh, so you mean getting real skills and actual skills that can translate across the board? That's stupid. I don't think so.
Yeah, what I'm coming to realize is a lot of kids are hurting right now. And I can't go into personally what just took place in our family, but little kids are suffering because they don't have the words to actually say what they're feeling. And they're going off of everything they see from their family, they hear from school, they hear from their friends. I mean, a lot of my kids, their friends' parents are divorced or getting divorced. And during a pandemic, during the craziness, during this political infighting and their friends judging them if they don't say the right thing or aren't believing the right thing, that's way, way too much for children. I mean, it's one thing to bomb a child's village and kill a child and it lasts 5 seconds, boom, they're gone. Right. But or leave the, but to psychologically on a slow drip, torture children to where they can't even communicate and they don't even know what to do. And they're trying to understand adults. Why would adults ever put children in a situation where they're not trying to understand children, but they're demanding that children understand adults? We are failing children so bad. It is so sad that as adults, we're so immature emotionally that we're demanding that children understand us. And yet we're not taking the time to understand those little bitty brains, those little bitty hands, those little bitty feet. We're backwards. We're upside down. And those who lie to us and say, no child left behind and Common Core, and right now they are the epitome of evil to me. They're destroying our children. They're destroying our lives, all for power's sake. They don't care about us. They don't care about our children.
Well, I think, I think you're exactly right, Amber, and that the program is the destruction of humanity. There's no other explanation for what we're seeing, that we're witnessing every day. And that's why we have to push back and we have to keep getting the word out as much as we can, because it's growing. And as long as it continues to grow, hopefully in a nice one of those big curves that goes up, I'm going the wrong way, that can make that change, because humanity is worth saving. Humanity is wonderful and nature is wonderful. And we don't want to live in a box somewhere where we can't talk and we can't be human beings and hug each other and be outside. It's just, that's not right. So I don't know why this is so difficult to get people to understand, but it's because they're captured,
Yeah. And I think also we have become accustomed to, unless it's chaotic or unless it's divisive and like intense, people aren't tuning in anymore. So anything that's lovely or comforting or helpful, or where you gain an understanding of something, or, it seems like people are more drawn to turn on the soap opera rather than the garden show. They're more in tune to turn on the evening news where people are screaming at one another than they are about how to fix your roof or how to build a beehive, or how to build like a beekeeper thing, or a chicken coop, whatever it is. It seems like the things that are more wholesome, good for the family, good for your soul, that will help you sleep at night and enhance your creativity. Turning on, songs from the 30s, 40s, and 50s and dancing around the house while you're cleaning, it doesn't seem as fun as listening to people scream at each other and figure out what team you're on, and then contact 3 or 4 people, go, oh my God, did you see this? It seems like people are addicted to that rush of adrenaline, of divisiveness, and constant my team, like it's a big sports arena, kind of like the Roman arena where they slaughtered Christians. It's kind of like everyone is addicted to that, rather than helping the elderly person across the street who's got a damaged roof and their screen door isn't shutting anymore. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how to keep people from craving and yearning for chaos, because it seems like that's what they were, like that's what we were led down, like that's normal now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that gets you out of bed, oh, my team, and this and that, rather than just taking in the gifts and the amazing miracles that happen around us every day.
Well, I think the addiction to media has taken us away from nature, and that's been a big loss. And the slow drip of adrenaline and addiction from pharmaceuticals, from street drugs, from all sorts of stuff, that's been a slow drip that's now just so ubiquitous, we don't even see it. We don't see the suffering. We don't see the death. We don't see, it's right in front of us, but we learn how to have a curtain over our eyes as you walk by. And that is something that is inhumane. It destroys our hearts. So it has been slow, but so rapid in the last few years that we really can't ignore that. What was this complete rapid turnaround, and not point the fingers where they need to be pointed, and I think that's what we're trying to do. So
and just the thing about doing right by our kids, like we really need to do better as a whole for our kids. We really do. And it's so simple, Carol, you just said it. Go outside and talk about things outside in nature. Boom, you just did an amazing thing that day. There's so much, even yourself, if you're by yourself and you look at clouds. And that's kind of the difference, because if you have media, you might be looking for something in particular. And if you can stick to that, the better. But when you're out in nature and helps inform you about it, it's just like that mycelium that makes a connection. It's like saying, oh, remember that, whatever the messages that are supposed to be coming to you, it's direct, because it's like the trees are kind of like our antennas in a way.
Mm-hmm. And our hair. But I think when you're watching the clouds go by, sadly now, they're not always just clouds. And it's hard not to notice that, and
Yep.
Why are they glad? Why do they have these wave patterns like a moray?
Because we've noticed our child, our youngest, he had a little struggle this last week. We decided this weekend we're going to go to the family's cabin. And one thing that's amazing about this place is there is a huge deck with a little roof, and it's a tin roof. So anything that falls on it go ding, 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 ding. When it rains, the birds are everywhere, and it overlooks the lake. But early in the morning, when there's dew still out, there's a dew coming off the lake, there's a little bit of fog, having the kids have hot chocolate, and we have our coffee, sitting there swinging on the porch swing and sitting in the outside chair and listening to nature, and bringing the identity book of birds and bringing extra bird food and being really, really quiet and being excited when we see a hummingbird or we see a type of bird, and then thumbing through the book really quick and being extra quiet and getting our binoculars and bringing our telescope. So at night we can go out on the boat dock and look up into the sky. That I see my kids, understanding what a gift it is to be alive and how amazing and big the universe is, and how special they are. And we're all losing that. So if my one request today would be, take a moment to go outside early in the morning and as the sun is going down and just listen. Listen to the symphony of everything that's living among you, and sit with people you love and hold their hand, and take in the moments as we have them.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder. And the light at that time of day and night is so magnificent, and it just casts, beautiful glow on the universe. So, yeah, those moments we can share. And remember who we are, who we really are. We're here to inherit this life.
And remember,
Right.
we have to remember what our great grandparents, what our ancestors fought for, and why they fought so hard to get here, and why they fought so hard to preserve our liberties.
Yes, and there's been so much bloodshed for us to ignore that, and for us to go back into the deep recesses of regression, rather than moving forward each day and being thoughtful and thankful that our ancestors made it possible where we are alive. I think a lot of times we say, well, my ancestor was of Irish descent over here and they were treated bad over here and life isn't fair and that's not good. But that ancestor made sure you're alive today. What are you going to do with your life today? How I know there's spiritual warfare and how I know there's a really dark force is because that dark force makes sure that we're always looking behind. They were always looking at the thing that wasn't fair or the thing that wasn't good, rather than harnessing what we have today and making it better. Taking the last thing that dark entity wants us to do is to take it into our own hands and make a beautiful world and make things more beautiful and not worry about what happened, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Learn from it. Don't repeat it. However, if that's where we're stuck in a perpetual motion of circular logic. We're never getting out of it, which is exactly what a dark entity would want. Would never want us to move forward with our strength and our tenacity and our blessings that we have every day that we wake up with another breath. And I think that's what a lot of people have forgotten. And I've forgotten it so many times in my life. But now that I have kids, I don't have that opportunity to forget. And so each day I have to have a note where I can see as soon as I wake up, you're awake, you have another breath. What are you going to do with today?
Mm-hmm.
Hear, hear.
I would like to
Amen.
Here,
Blessing.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very encouraging. I'm down in Atlanta now, and I took a long walk outside the city into the countryside, and I love to see the people sitting on their porch and inviting their neighbors up onto the porch. That is a big deal, because the establishment, what used to be called the establishment, they want you in your house, in watching your TV, and not opening yourself to other people, and not reaching across the hedges and talking with your neighbors is so important now, because it's a local level. It's breaking down these artificial barriers in some kind of rebirth of America.
Rebirth of America. That's right. This is revival, people. Revival. Revive your spirit. Revive your dance steps. Whatever it is you need to revive. Get moving.
I'll tell you, we decide like twice a month that we're going to do a dance party, and sometimes we'll just play a game. So last weekend it was play the game Clue while we watch the movie Clue, and the kids really enjoyed that. This week we chose 50s music, and 40s music is going to be our dance party.
Great.
And the songs that made my kids, I was looking for songs and going through the list to see what made them smile and start getting up and jumping around. And it was things like rum and Coca-Cola, the Andrews sisters, and then it don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing.
Bebop,
Yeah, and Mac the Knife and shaboom, shaboom. Shaboom, shaboom. And then let's see, Woolly Bully and all kinds of vintage music that they were just like, yes, I want that one. The Civilization with Danny Thomas, Bongo, Bongo, Bongo. There's so many great 40s and 50s songs. And there's Ella Fitzgerald, there's Billie Holiday. Like there's so much that I saw them smile from ear to ear and dance around and bebop around. So, tonight is going to be a fun dance party with just enjoying and, having just a big snack tray out and just dancing around and cutting up. And I think that families should really take the time to do that more often, whether it's dancing or singing or playing an instrument or, going on a scavenger hunt. It's so much fun letting the kids make a scavenger hunt. There's so many things to do rather than turn on the TV and listen to people scream at one another and see devastation and chaos. And we need to get back to forcing the world to smile in a way where they forgot, but they love it so much that they crave it. Where you force a smile on everybody by smiling. It's hard to resist a smile. It's so hard. If you're going to force anything on somebody, force a smile on their face. Smile, eye contact. Yeah.
Amber, Mac the Knife popped into my head the other day. That must have been from you guys.
Well, my grandfather is his favorite one, and he used to gamble, and my grandmother would get so angry. He was a pool shark, and he was a car dealer as well, and she was very religious, and he would come in, and he would have, from pool sharking, a bunch of money and like some deeds. She would flush the money down. She would call the lady up and say, I've got your husband's deed. He would get in trouble, but he was an amazing pool shark. His favorite song was Mac the Knife. And she loved the song too, but he would dance around. He'd pick her up and grab her and swing her around in the living room. And he'd like sway, and she goes, you're not going to sweet talk me. You're not going to go gambling. So it's very funny, their relationship. And they were together 51 years before he died. They had only been with one another. They were the cutest couple, but so different from one another. But I'll never forget listening and watching my mama and Pampal dance to Mac the Knife, and
That's
her
their
being
song.
Yes, and she would be swooning because he was, taller than her, bigger than her, and like swinging her around and dipping her. And it was a memory. And then as soon as I played it for my kids, they were jumping around. They were like, they loved it. And I said, oh, great. This is so great.
Swoon unit, what? Swoon unit.
Well, there's wisdom everywhere, and certainly in the music. There's no doubt about that. That's a great antidote to what ails us.
Yes, comedy too. I found myself just like turning on a comedian. Jim Gaffigan's a really funny one for kids if they're around. But if not, adult humor is really funny too. Just something to get you out of the funk and just make you laugh and giggle. Sometimes I'll just turn on Seinfeld, the show, in the background and just kind of be doing things I need to around the house. And it's just, there's just little funny one-liners. Elaine Bennis is like my favorite one on there. So the things she says and does, and Kramer just cracks me up. And I need it in this world today in order to be there for my children and not stress out when they're stressed. I need to have that calmness about me and that reset every day so that when they come to me with something major, I'm there for them, and I'm not already in some funky place where I was listening to two people argue and banter that I believe they're really enemies. Meanwhile, they're going out for drinks later. And half of my friend pool aren't talking to one another, all because they believe the BS banter going on between them. It's really sad that people have lost friendships and friends that they've been friends with for a long time, and family members, because two people in Congress are pretending to have an argument, and later they go to a bar and they can get along and have dinner, but they've broken apart so many different families and friendships.
And that's Gladio. That's Gladio.
Yep. It's sad. And so I'm not dumping any of my friends. Yeah, I'm not dumping any friends or family. Even if what they say is insane, I don't care. Like, let them say it. I want to be able to say what I want to say. They can say whatever they want to say. And the most logical and the one who's has more tenacity, okay, they win. But you don't ostracize people. And you also don't harm them or set them up for sabotage. You don't do any of that, especially if you don't like it done to you. It's a very easy golden rule.
Well, that's one of the reasons.
And find common ground, I think. Sometimes we have to, give up our soapbox to find that common ground. But being human is the most important thing. Yeah.
It's often. I mean, I've even bantered with people. We had everything in common, just about what to grow in a season. I mean, no matter what, that's human beings. We all have our own mind, and you have to. There's give and take. There's not if you're dogmatic, you're not going to meet very many people that are going to have those same dogmatic ideas. Even people in the church that think they agree on everything. Oh my gosh. Have you ever heard rabbis banter? Like, one of the funniest things, I like going to Brooklyn, New York. I really like the diversity there. And going to a pizza place, you could see over here some Italian cops right behind you, a table full of rabbis. They don't get along. They're literally arguing about everything. And debating. It is the most interesting thing to listen to. But it brings up the point. They leave friends. And not any of them agreed with most of the things. And they read the same verse. And they all had a different idea of it. But they all left as friends. Even though they were talking like this and laughing and, no, you'll see. And there's something beautiful in that. There's something beautiful in people having that different idea, sharing it, and walking away and still being friends. I think it's beautiful.
Well, my Nana said, maybe a couple years ago, she was like, geez, we used to just agree to disagree. Like, she just couldn't really understand what was going on about this severe division, and just amongst brothers, civil. And I just think that, we have so much common ground. There is no way around it. The basics are the basics. And to expect that we're ever all going to agree on something, it's lame. It's boring. We don't even want that. We don't want that. I mean, liars. Yeah, we don't want the liars. Okay. We don't want the manipulators and liars, but we do want different people's perspectives and like you said, to leave friends, because it's like, disagreeing does not have to be something bad, and so
I think it has to do with emotional immaturity, because I think our world, the adults, even if they made horrible decisions, or each country tends to have an ugly past, it has things that should not have happened and things that we should learn from. Let's take it as a learning lesson. But there's the emotional maturity is taking much longer for the human race to reach as when it used to. Like, people just used to know, I have to grow a garden. I have to do this in order to survive. Like, this is just part of it. I'm not going to sit around, stomp my feet, do all these things to try to get out of the inevitable. I'm emotionally mature. I'm going to do what I need to do because it's my responsibility to do it. Now it's like, how can I get out of it? How can I blame someone else? How can I not take responsibility for my actions and then tell everybody else life sucks because of this, this, and this, rather than being emotionally mature about it? And I think that our schools aren't teaching that responsibility, that independence, and that emotional maturity. They're teaching dependence, and they're teaching you a crutch, and you need to complain until you get something, or you need to throw a fit, a tantrum. No, they're not teaching debate. They're not teaching, logical argument where two people say this is this, and bring up poignant points. They're teaching throw a fit, throw a Molotov cocktail, hit somebody, scream you're a Nazi or a communist, whatever, just to get rid of them. And so you can get your way and then laugh about your merry way. That's emotional immaturity. That is not maturity whatsoever.
And that's why it's not just the little kids that we have to watch out for, which is base importance, but these young adults, obviously not everyone. There are wonderful, smart, people that are going in the right direction anyway, I should say. But a lot of these people that have gotten tricked, trained into exactly what you're describing of this it's kind of like the spirit of wrath or something. It's just, it's like, it comes into them and it's not natural. It's being taught. And we need to have some kind of method to deal with this, because this is, like you're saying, this is a slow drip for psychological problems down the road.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like, and I'm not saying women have all the answers. I'm just saying the maternal part of what's going on right now is being overshadowed by aggression. And aggression has its place, and protecting has its place. But women, a large amount of women seem to be out of touch with their maternal side and how to wisely speak and behave in such a manner that it commands respect. And it seems like now they're having to play a man's game and talk in a man way to get the respect, when there's a beauty in in their femininity, and it's been lost. And I think we should really do everything we can to get women to love themselves again. And I think it has to do with trauma and confusion. But there's something so beautiful about a woman. Yeah. And I think we need to get back to that absolutely balancing of the feminine and the masculine. We're off balance, and we need to give the strength to our sisters out there. They don't need to dress a certain way or act a certain way or be more aggressive. They need to be in touch with their maternal side, their life-giving side, and feel proud to be that, and not try to be the prettiest or the best. Try to be maternal, and that's what makes you beautiful. You can look any way, but if you're not being your feminine self of who you are, it's not going to show through. Your beauty doesn't show through. And women are beautiful. They've lost that voice.
And it's like the whole thing of like you're saying, the balancement. It's like you have men, women, we both have roles, they're important, but people are being taught, like, if you're going to respect, like you're saying, respect, honor me in this position, honor me, but they want it to be like this, where like for honor, you need to be looking down on everyone else, like kiss the boot type thing. You know what I mean? And so we need to get it so that we appreciate our roles. They don't offend us. It's not every situation is just the cut and, the one size fits all, but and even the way that we relate to each other, there's always a lock and key. There's always the male and female. It's not just a physical thing. Like you're saying, when women have mostly will have that maternal instinct, and the men, traditionally, it doesn't have to be this way. They might be the muscle to be like, all right, everyone in the house right now. And like the girl might be like, why are you being, you know what I mean? It's like, when you have respect, you don't need to question those things, because you've developed, that you honor each other, you honor each other's roles, and that's what we do with kids and adults.
I think both male and female have done a disservice to one another by making each other feel uncomfortable to be themselves. Males have tended to look at women like, well, you're not smart enough to vote, you're not this or that, and so they're uncomfortable with being themselves, just like females have looked at males like, well, you're being too aggressive, you're being this, you're being that, rather than allowing them to be themselves. And I think what ruins it are the people who are shysters, the women who are manipulative, that do whatever it takes to do what they want, and the men who treat women like they're baggage, and they can just they can impregnate their wife over and over and then go sleep with their secretary behind their wife's back. Like, there were those people who ruined it for everybody, and they didn't take personal responsibility. And then it gave those who wanted to take advantage of the human race a way to turn us against one another and to cause this chasm that we have today.
Yeah, the antidote to this divide and conquer idea is to cultivate mutual respect, and that's maybe a message, and there are people that want to lord it over everybody, and we don't have to respect that part of them. Definitely, we can, speak the truth about that, because the monopoly of the worst ideas that are beneath humanity, and having that be what everybody is worshiping or whatever, there's something really wrong about that. But as human beings, as individuals, we can do that. We can cultivate a mutual respect, and that
we're capable of so much. We're capable of so much, and we're being short-sighted and shortchanged by allowing authority figures to tell us what we're capable of, or frame our mind where we can't even think outside of what we're being told. We need to be in touch with who we are individually, like making a list of, when you were little, what were the things you gravitated towards? What do you think are your 5 talents? And asking yourself, am I doing anything with those? I find a lot of times I have my 5 talents, and I'm like, I haven't done anything in the last month that has anything to do with that. I'm literally throwing away the gifts that I was born to share in order to fit a mold that my government or that the people around me make me feel like, unless I'm fitting this mold, I don't fit in. That's very sad. We should all be holding on to our gifts that we were brought into this world to share, and making sure we exercise those at least once or twice a day, at least one of those gifts every day.
And that's teaching the kids right there. Another good.
You're muted,
So
Tara.
I was gonna say, I think the audio is being weird. John, are you actually there? Or is that just your? Well, anyway, I would just say too that it also goes with the same way with kids and adults. It's like, obviously adults are there to protect and guide, but listen to your kids. And also, like Amber's just saying, you can develop your own entertainment. You don't need to be, but I think the Clue thing is actually great. I love that game and I love that movie, and it's so creative just to like make here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get these materials. We're gonna do this, and it's very adventurous. And that stuff stays with them. They're gonna do it with their kids. They're gonna do it with their kids. I mean, this stuff it lasts over generations. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, because they're very active and a little bit hyper. We came up with having them play chess with a bunch of stuff going on in the background. So like, I could be doing the dishes pretty loud. We've got music going, people are talking, and then they have to focus and play chess. So it'd be daddy and oldest or daddy and youngest, and then everyone's allowed to be super loud, and see like, how can they function? Can they focus? And what does focus mean? And was it challenging? Did they do well? When there was a lot going on, were they able to tune everything out? Or did it enhance everything where they couldn't think of anything, to like feel exactly what they're going through in the moment of like, oh, I want to win. What's going on? Just to bring out all of those different emotions and feelings, and to know themselves that we're excited to try that. We're either going to try it Saturday or Sunday. But I think it gets them in touch with them. And it'll get us in touch, because we're going to do it too, to see like what activates us panicking. Well, I can't concentrate. Stop. Or, oh, I lost. Oh, that's because of the music, or that's because of this. Where you're watching your brain. You're watching your behavior. You're watching your environment. You're reacting. You're watching your reaction. And I think it's really important that we're looking at ourselves in the mirror and we put ourselves in those circumstances. So when emergencies do arise, we know who we are, and we've practiced, and we grasp it, so that it gets rid of that panic. It gets rid of that unsure of like, what if this happens? What if that happens? Because we put ourselves in those scenarios during fun times to like analyze ourselves.
I wonder if the women will do worse though, because you know how we're like, part of our maternal thing is that multitasking and like making sure that you don't miss anything. So I feel like the men may be better at that, even though that'd be a good practice for me, for sure.
I do too. And that's why I'm pretty excited about it, because I want to see, I have a feeling I'm going to be outnumbered. I'm going to be like, I can't do this. But I'm interested, because I want to see our reactions as the maternal person in the house. Sociologically, it's really important, because if there's something that happens, I'll know how to approach each person, how to speak to each one, how to get each one to either calm down or to zone in or to open their ears, because it gives me a pattern and a way to analyze. Because in order to protect your nest, you have to know how each person in the nest reacts to different circumstances and different environmental changes. And I feel like as they grow older, they change, and you have to tap in every now and then to see how they've changed in order to be there for them in a moment of crisis, or in a moment of unsurety, or just in a moment of peace. You'll know what to say to be the nurturer.
A lot of strategies to deal with the dark winter, and how to focus on the abundance over the scarcity that's appearing. So it's been a great discussion. I think we're past our time limit. So
Okay, we lost our host. He must be in the ether waves.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to close it down ourselves, because he said we were out of time.
Okay, and we listened to the captain.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'll say goodbye, and then I'll leave the studio. That way he's able to shut down and not worry about having to say anything. But I had a wonderful time, ladies.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week of summer, and you know what's coming.
Yeah. Well, it's
harvest.
Okay. Blessings, everybody. Bye.
Bye.